Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is the Third and Lang podcast. Excited to be with you. I am EDGYTIM, and I am about to bring in, well, probably one of the largest Olympia fans going, and I mean that both stature as well as his gear and what he's wearing. And gosh darn it, Matt Leng, why shouldn't you be excited about the Olympia Spartans these days? What a couple of week run for your kids over at Olympia. Congratulations to them and to you as well.
Well, this is about Olympia High School. It's about the 8 towns that provide that one heartbeat for Olympia. It was a great night for Eric Lyons and all the hard work he's done with defense coordinator Coach Murray and all of our coaches. It was wonderful, and it was Spartans against Spartans, and it was kind of a neat contested game early in the game, and it kind of went back and forth, and then the floodgates kind of opened, and this is a big win for our program, and Eric deserves all the credit. He's grinded, he's worked hard, and we're feeling pretty good, but we're continuing to do the things we do. Eric has a great practice routine. He's a grinder. We're having a great couple days so far this week, and we'll talk more about what we have in store for this week, because we're at home, and it's going to be great. But in terms of that atmosphere, it was just wonderful. A packed house. The kids were ecstatic, and what can you say? We're in Elite 8 football, and we're the 15th seed, and we've played great football the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and talk about the atmosphere and how that's carried over in the school, because I'm sure it's had to carry over in the school.
Well, as you can see, I got a couple of sweatshirts back here to kind of be proof in the pudding. The kids are excited, the cheerleaders are excited, the teachers are excited, the student body's excited. Everybody's just really pumped up. We'll have a team meal tomorrow night. All the communities are just jacked up, and it's great. We had vote day yesterday, and we didn't have school, and these last 2 days we kind of had off from school, and that's kind of how our calendar kind of fell. But
yeah,
man, we got back today on a Wednesday, and the kids are just jumping off the walls. I mean, they're already ready for the game on Saturday, and it was great last week because we were taking on St. Joe, and now we get an opportunity to take on Williamsville, a team that beat us, and we have a lot of respect for them, and it's just going to be a great atmosphere. 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and bitter cold temperatures. It's going to be wonderful.
No doubt about it. All right, so we need to go through 1A through 4A, as well as our friends over in 8-man. By the way, Mr. Lang, do you realize a week from Friday we will be at the 8-man state championship game?
Time is really flying, and you got to like the 8-man format, because they start out with that field, and then boom, it just kind of gets whittled down, and before you know it, I mean, you're
quick, very quick.
It goes really quick, so it's really neat how that's kind of happened. It starts out with 16, and then it goes right down to, we have 4 teams, and we'll talk about them, but everybody else, 1A through 4A and 5A through 8A. I mean, here we are. I mean, like I said, tell the kids in the school, we're going to be having turkey and mashed potatoes, and the next thing you know, we're unwrapping presents, and this is a great time of the year right now. So I can't wait to talk about what we're going to talk about.
All right, so tonight we are going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to start in 8-man, go to 1A, and then work our way up to 4. So let's start, Matt, in 8A. Here are your quarterfinal results from the 8A. I'm sorry. The 8-man football, the quarterfinals this past weekend. The 8th seed St. Thomas More upsets the 1 seed Decatur Lutheran 44-38. Number 7 seed Milledgeville, they unfortunately fall to number 2 seed West Central 38-14. 6 seed Polo gets a 38-32 win over number 3 seeded Cambridge Ridgewood, and the number 5 seed Amboy gets a 30-28 win over the number 4 seed Milford. So again, that leaves your 8-man semifinals this weekend, both games on Saturday. 8th seed St. Thomas More on the road at number 5 seed Amboy. That's a 12 p.m. Saturday kickoff. And then in the other side of the bracket, number 2 seed West Central, they hit the road. They will take on Polo in Polo. That is a Saturday 1 o'clock game, Matt. And again, as we mentioned, it goes by quick. It's moving along for sure, but definitely exciting to see the 8-man football in the semifinals. And again, before you know it, we're going to be heading down to Monmouth College for the state title for 8A. Or I'm sorry, for 8A, for 8-man. I gotta find myself every time I do that now.
No, well, as promised, we thought a lot of these games were going to be really good. There are 8 teams. We had 8 teams. Now it's down to 4, and we kind of felt like any of those 8 teams could make it to the state championship, and all those games were decided by 6 points or less, except for the Milledgeville West Central game. But West Central looked a little human versus Milledgeville. That was a much closer game than the 38-14 score.
Yep.
St. Thomas More and Amboy, just to talk about this, that's going to be an incredible game. St. Thomas More, they overcame a 16-point deficit to come back and win last week at Decatur. The Sabres were really able to take advantage of key LSA injuries and the offensive miscues to pull away from the Lions. And the Amboy, held one of those stable building blocks of 8-man. Milford, they held them out of the end zone on a 4th and goal from the 3-yard line that punched their ticket to the semifinals. So these two teams are very big up front. They're very physical. The Clippers now have their starting quarterback back from an injury and are rolling on both sides of the ball. STM has some real playmakers on their side of the ball. We've talked about Peace Bumba and a defense that really can cause a lot of turnovers. Even when St. Thomas More was playing 11-man, they've always had the athletic guys on the edges that can make turnovers happen. Amboy has a top-notch defense that will pose a big-time risk for STM than they've had last week. This is going to come down to field position and who makes the fewest mistakes. On the flip side of that, the favorite, Jason Kirby, West Central, they're at Polo. And, I apologize to the Polo fans because these guys have kind of been the talk of 8-man ever since 8-man came out. Ted's done a great job up there. This is the game of the week. Whoever wins this should be looked at as the favorite in the 8-man championship game. Polo won a really hard-fought football game against a very solid Pat Elder Ridgewood team. If you're an old school guy like you and me, Tim, we like Tom Osborne or Barry Switzer, Tom Osborne. That game that was a clinic for those who love to run the football. West Central put on a clinic of their own against an outstanding Milledgeville team, and the Missiles played the Heat close. But as the Heat started to kind of pull away, the game got kind of a little lopsided. For Polo, I think we need to remember that they're the defending champs. They're really good. To beat the Heat, they'll need to have to play a perfect game. If the Marcos can kind of hold on the ball and play really good mistake turnover-free football, they're going to be in position to upset West Central, but that's going to be a big task. Can anybody really withstand West Central's physical style for 4 quarters? So far, the answer's been no, but Polo has been Polo, and they showed that last year in the championship game. They should never, ever be counted out.
You mentioned beat the Heat. Should we get into the forecast already for the weekend, or
we'll talk about it now? We'll talk about it later because I think it is the big storyline going into this weekend.
It is. We definitely will get into it. But yeah, as far as beating the Heat, that would be a challenge for all of us on Saturday around the state watching high school football for sure. So be prepared for that. All right. So that takes care of 8-man football. Let's dive into 1A, Matt. And again, here are the results in the quarterfinal round. Lena Winslow, 76-7 over Rova, Matt. That is getting it done. And I'm sure the Lena fans are getting grief, like the Reed Custer fans are getting grief, and all the other programs that end up putting those big scores up are getting grief for putting up a big score. But hey, it's playoff time. It's big boy football time. So again, Lena advances. They get the win. They will take on Fulton. Again, Fulton with a 28-0 win over Rockford Lutheran. An impressive win. And here's a shocker for us then. 44-16 over Chicago Hope Academy. And again, big win, no doubt about it, for the Cardinals. They advance. And gee, look who they're playing, Matt. They're playing Dakota. Dakota a 30-19 win over Ottawa Marquette. So imagine that, Matt Leng. We have an all NUIC quarterfinal bracket in the North. Something we've all talked about, something we've all basically said, you know what? Boy, if you got all these teams, I wonder how far they really could go. Again, an amazing accomplishment for the NUIC. Someone's going to get to a state championship game out of this conference, which I know has been a regularity anyway, but now it's guaranteed after the quarterfinal round. An amazing accomplishment for the NUIC. Now let's finish. We'll go through the southern part of the bracket. Again, Ridgeview Lexington, 58-20 win over Salt Fork, so they advance. Tuscola gets a 29-26 win over Jacksonville Route. Camp Point Central, a 24-0 win over Cesar Valier. And then Greenfield, the Northwest, they get a 26-0 win over Cumberland. So, Matt, the quarterfinals are as follows. Lena Winslow, the 1 seed on the road at Fulton. That is a Saturday 1 o'clock kickoff. Dakota, they will also go on the road, the 11 seed, and take on number 10 seed Forreston. Saturday, 2 o'clock kickoff at Forreston. Tuscola goes on the road, will play Colfax. That is a 1 o'clock kickoff as well on Saturday. And then finally, the final quarterfinal game in 1A, Greenfield Northwest on the road at Camp Point Central, 1 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. Matt, your thoughts on the 1A semifinal field?
Well, I mean, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but it is all about the NUIC. There's 4 teams still in the playoffs from that conference. And I think the 2 big questions we asked is, can Fulton slow down Lena the second time around? And then Dakota, Dakota's Dakota. I mean, they've had this great tradition, and no one's really talked about them. Will they kind of maybe be the sleeper or the dark horse of that northern bracket? But right now, it's looking like it's going to be Lena, but it's amazing, and I'll talk more about this later. Once again, we're going to have an NUIC team in the 1A state finals. I think in the South, I think you'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how quick and fast Camp Point Central is. But, Andy Romine has a young team. The question is, can they stop Ridgeview? And, we're going to talk about – I'd like to talk about those 2 games real quick if I could, but I think those are some great questions we ask. Like with Fulton, here's a team, that, they're kind of playing their best ball like right now. And, I talked to Coach Lawler, and he's just really, really happy like where they're at. Lucas Schroeder is a very capable downhill running back. The wide receiver, Baylor Damhoff. And then they have another running back, a slot back, Ryan Eads. And then their quarterback, Braden, don't call me Lenny Dykstra. He kind of is the straw that stirs the drink. Sorry for the baseball theme there, but,
cool.
They got some good backs of their own. And they're not – here's a team that, their week 3 win at Dupec, I think was kind of a confidence builder in them, And then in weeks 3, 4, and 5, they just started to become a little bit more of a physical team. And one of the things they did after week 5 is they kind of inserted some younger kids. They got a couple of sophomore linebackers in Dom Kramer and Ben Fosdick. And it's really made their team a little bit better. But they're going to have their hands full. When you talk about Lena, we're talking about Gage Dunker, the running back, Gunnar Lobdell, the kid from Orangeville, and Jake Zeal, I think is his name. Here's the deal. This isn't fancy football. This is smash mouth, kick you in the teeth football. They're fast, they're mean, and they don't fumble the ball. And I think that's a big thing that, when we talk about in playoffs, if you turn the ball over, you're going to lose. Not trying to rub it in St. Joe Ogden's face, but they had 3 turnovers. We had 2. And that turnover differential in playoff football is just crushing. Yeah. So Lena doesn't turn the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over, they should win. But, I think Fulton is a formidable opponent. Go ahead. Were you going to add something?
No, go ahead. Go far away. Keep going.
Well, I'm just going to go back and then go down to the South. We've talked about Camp Point. We've talked about Ridgeview. We might talk about them some more down the road. But, Andy Romine has a great coaching staff. Lenny Semeni, been a long-time defensive coordinator there. He used to coach with Coach Welder at Monticello, coach with Stan Winky when Coach Wink was running the ship at Tuscola. And they're young, they've had to put some inserts in there. Austin Cummings is a receiver that now is playing running back. Freshman Dylan Graves, he kind of been thrown into the fire since week 9. He has over 450 yards since week 9. Chris Boyd is a 60-foot shot putter. He's an all-area offensive and defensive lineman. Hunter Branca is a defensive back, Tim, that's really made some big plays here in the playoffs. He's had 3 interceptions in the playoffs, and he's had them at big times in big games, with them kind of having their butts on the line. Like they had he had a big interception in the Jacksonville route game, and of course they got Jordan Quinn at quarterback. Okay, so you have this athletic, tall kid, and they're going to give Ridgeview all they want. They're not scared of them. They feel like they have a team that can kind of take care of business in the trenches. But, I've talked to Andy, and he'll flat out tell you, Ridgeview's good defensively too. They're good up front. They're good with their linebackers. And then, Hal Kyoto does what Hal Kyoto does. And that'll be a really good game, 1 o'clock in Colfax.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, when you look at 1A and how it fell and how it shakes out, again, I've got to revert back to 1 through 32 versus North and South. If you're an NUIC fan, you're going to be pissed on Saturday at about 4 or 5 o'clock because, well, actually knowing those teams will be more like 3:30. The 2 very good teams are going to be eliminated on Saturday. Sure. That Matt, in some cases, and maybe this could be a case where this is a situation. 4 of your best teams in 1A could very well be in that upper part of the bracket, and you'll just never really know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of come down to that, and I think football kind of goes in ebbs and flows and it goes in cycles. But one cycle that has really remained consistent over the last, 15 to 20 years is that some of the best football in Class 1A, the best football in Class 1A is in the NUIC. I mean, yeah. I'll talk more about that later.
Right.
Spoiler alert, I don't want to,
sure.
But it is what it is.
Yep.
I do think Camp Point and Ridgeview and Tuscola all will have a say in this. One of those teams will come out of the South, and we'll talk more about that later. But for right now, you've talked about this over the years too. It's hard for some of these teams that are just still trying to build their programs and establish themselves when you're going against these traditional powers.
Same teams every year, every path.
It is. And I know for Coach A at Elena Winslow, he's been very blessed. He's been very fortunate. He has a great coaching staff, from the basketball coach to the baseball coach to the wrestling program to the track coach. They're all great educators, and the football gods have been good to Elena.
And this goes more than 1A. This is 1A through 8A. You go all the way through, and it was the same argument in 7A and 8A for why it should be the same argument in 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A. Because of the fact that we've talked about, you're running into the same teams generally every playoff season.
Yep.
It's the same old, and it just has to change. We have to get the 1 through 32 in there. I'll get off the soapbox, but as soon as that was my first thought I saw is, wow, the NUIC is amazing, and 2 of the 4 are getting eliminated next week. So anyway, let's move on.
I will just say this too.
Yes.
And I don't want to talk about something that we don't need to talk about, but I just know people are griping about that down here. They're griping about it down here, and they're also griping about things that have been changed over the years.
Yeah.
From conference alignment to district football to all that stuff. All those things are still, I think, in need to be reevaluated.
Right.
And we'll talk about that later.
And you mentioned you had to bring up district football. It is a completely different beast up here compared to what it would be in other parts of the state. And it's a very complicated issue. It's a very divisive issue. And it's something that the bottom line is the conference system is still preferred and works up here, whether it's the right way, the wrong way. It's what the majority of schools still want to continue to have, and I don't see it changing. But
and
off season.
the only reason I brought that up, and I didn't mean to add something to
You're
it.
fine. We got time.
No, but I heard someone talk about it, and I won't mention their name. I think it was an athletic director or administrator or whatever, and they were quoted as saying that in the News Gazette, like it's something to be reevaluated or looked at. And the thing is that people get passionate about this. And like you were saying, like I know that we are dealing with pandemics, and I know we're dealing with politics and gas prices and this and that, whatever. But there's something about our high school playoff system where people get very passionate about it. And I just think that 1 through 32 has to come back. And we'll talk more about that later. So I don't, we can talk about it all.
You're all good. We'll save it for the off-season podcast, no doubt, because we're going to have a lot to cover and go over. So let's go into two-way results in the quarterfinals. Again, Maroa Forsyth with a 42-12 win over Farmington to advance. Taylor Ridge, Rockridge, 27-18 over Bloomington Central Catholic. Knoxville, 48-29 win over Bismarck Henning. Matt, I know that is a little bit of an eye raiser for sure when that came down. And Wilmington, one of the giants here in 2A, gets knocked off by Tri-Valley. Tri-Valley gets a 28-21 win on the road at Wilmington. So again, that is your upper part. Actually, I just gave you the upper part of the bracket. Southern part of the bracket in 2A, St. T, 59-33 over Athens to advance. Pana gets a 68-50 win over Fairfield. Johnston City a 28-8 win over ALAH. You like that, Matt? How I take my time. Belleville Althoff, they get a 26-14 win. So again, the Crusaders continue to march along despite being a lowly 14 seed, Matt. So the quarterfinals are as follows. Maroa Forsyth, the 1 seed, on the road at Taylor Ridge, Rockridge, Saturday, 2 o'clock. Kickoff, 7 seed Knoxville on the road at number 6 seed Tri-Valley, another Saturday at 1 o'clock. Kickoff, Pana, the 4 seed, on the road at St. T in Decatur. That is a 1 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. And finally, Althoff will travel to Johnston City on Saturday for a 4 o'clock kickoff. Matt, your thoughts on the 2A field and how the semifinals are shaking out here?
Well, I think up north in the 2A, you're going to have a great rematch potentially of, the 2013 semifinal game. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I put Tri-Valley kind of on the map. I think when you look at it, I mean, all courses, all collision courses are leading to a Tri-Valley Maroa game. In 2013, that was a big game. And then, the winner of that, I think the winner of that game potentially down the road would take on St. T. But, let's don't get ahead of ourselves here, okay? I mean, I think Maroa is going to have a battle. They have to go all the way to the other side of the state. Rockridge is just Sam Graves has done a great job. Tri-Valley, let's just talk and say how it is. Have probably a little bit of their chip on their shoulder. Here they had to go into Wilmington to deal with the theatrics of the 6 o'clock night game. They've been kind of punked and bullied and beat up by Wilmington over the years, and you know what? They come out on top. Knoxville, Ryan Hubbard, Wing T, Wishbone football, nothing fancy, quick hitters. He's going to get right at you. I think Pana with Coach Trevor, I think he's going to do a great job. I think that'll be a game you can watch out. Can St. T make that next step and continue to make that ride to that destination of that state championship and that state title game appearance that they desperately want? And then, I think it's kind of interesting here with this IC team, or not IC, but Johnson City JC team. Yep. Here's a team that is really big, really strong, and they got off to a great start against Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond. Fegan kid got hurt early in the game, and ALAH just never really fully recovered. I will say this. I think it's kind of an interesting note that Althoff would have actually been 4-5 this year. They got beat earlier in the season by Mount Vernon, and then Mount Vernon had to turn around and forfeit the game because of an ineligible player. So therefore, Althoff goes 5-4 and finds themselves in the quarterfinals. And no one's really talked about them, but watch out. You never know who's going to come out of the South. We always get a surprise team,
Yeah.
and watch out for those teams down there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So again, that is the lay of the land in the 2A quarterfinal round. And again, looking forward to those games and going over those results next week. So let's dig into Class 3A, sir, if we shall. In Class 3A, here are your results from round 2 action. In Class 3A, Princeton, a 26-2 win over Genoa Kingston to advance. Immaculate Conception, 42-14 over Stillman Valley. Matt, I know that game was close for about a half, I believe. I know was kind of following and scoreboard watching that one a little bit on Saturday, but IC gets the win. They advance over Stillman 42-14. Reed Custer gets the win. I'm sorry, I lost my place there. Reed Custer gets a 24-6 win over Dupac. And again, Matt, again, a tribute to Dupac and the NUIC of just how good that conference was. No doubt about it that they gave a very good Reed Custer team everything they can handle last weekend.
Well, in terms of that Reed Custer team, let me just talk a little bit about the North. I think in the 3A, I think it's kind of pretty much going par for the course, in terms of who's winning. The only exception, obviously, would be a 15 seed Olympia, and I'll talk more about them later. But in terms of up north, you got the heavyweights going at it.
And Byron, of course, I failed to mention at the upper bracket, Byron, 56-21 win over Seneca.
And so they kind of flexed their muscles early in that game and kind of just overwhelmed Seneca. I think, strength of conferences maybe have something to do with that. No disrespect towards Seneca. They were just a little overwhelmed and outmatched, but they had a great year. But now Byron, it's almost like the band is back together and they're going to the same stuff. Here they got Reed Custer and then potentially a matchup with IC. But Byron, what can you say? Jeff has a role in there. Braden Smith, a quarterback. He's really, really high on his linemen, Tim. Jake Can, Tyler Reed, Jared Clunch. And then the defensive side of the ball, linebacker James Cone, Ashton Henkel at free safety, really, really runs to the ball really well. Braylon Kilduff is a defensive end, and then they have a kind of a role player in Kai Aiken. Reed Custer, it's been this dynamic team all year long. Jake McPherson at quarterback, Lucas Foote at wide receiver. They like to get the ball to him on quick routes and screens. And then Braden Mormon and Josh Bohack are the slot receivers. They get a lot of yards after catch, and they just are really tough to take down. They got just a dynamic offense. Defensive side of the ball, Cody Marshner is a defensive line that really caused havoc up front. And then Brandon Mormon is that outside linebacker. He plays slot on offense, but on defense he plays that outside linebacker. So it's going to be a really, really interesting game. Princeton, talking to Coach Pearson, doesn't really have a lot to say. They don't have any special themes. They don't have any special storylines, anything like that. It's just a bunch of guys that really love one another. He's been punched out of the playoffs by some ICs in the past and by the Byrons of the past. Could this be the year that Coach Pearson makes the run? Well, it's going to be a tough task for him, and he knows that. His big game players, his game changers and top dogs are Tegan Davis, the quarterback, Augie Christensen, a running back, Payne Miller, defense on the defensive line, and then Danny Saihaki is that linebacker that we talked about. For IC, let's just make no doubt about it. KJ Parker is a phenomenal football player.
Great athlete, no doubt about it.
He is he probably has Big Ten SEC type of ability.
He does.
He's
Big Ten. Yep.
Denzel Gibson is a dynamic player on the edge, and this game is not difficult to figure out. The keys for IC or keys for Princeton beating IC, they have to contain Parker and Gibson on the edges, and they can't have any big plays. And then they got to do what they do well. They're going to be in for a ball game, but I tell you what, man. Get your ticket and your popcorn ready because it's going to be a good one.
No doubt about it. Let's dive into the southern bracket of 3A, and I know you certainly want to get into this one a little bit. Prairie Central, 41-20 win over Roxana to advance. Tolono Unity, 35-14 over the Golden Aces of Mount Carmel. So Unity advances. Olympia, a 60-28 win over St. Joe Ogden, Matt. That is a tremendous score. Wait a minute. This is an all-run option team you got over there in Olympia? You're putting up 60 points?
Well,
What do you think? You're Lena Winslow? Come on. And then finally, Williamsville gets a 18-16 win over Eureka. What do you think? A little wind impacted for Williamsville, maybe?
yeah, a little bit. I think Eureka did a nice job of kind of making it was 18-0, but then Eureka just didn't have that. They had that bend but don't quit attitude, and they came back and they made some plays there to kind of keep it simple and close. And what can you say? I mean, Williamsville is Aaron does a great job. They're very they have the playmakers, and they have guys on. I could say this, like along with Maroa Forsyth, they have the playmakers, they have the offense. We all know that, but we are very, very aware and conscientious of their defense. Their defense has some playmakers, and they're big and they're solid, and they can run sideline to sideline, and they got great lateral movement. Yep. We had some momentum breaks in that St. Joe game. We picked off a screen pass, Chase Litweiler, who I'd like to just do a little plug to him. I think he's a player that could play somewhere next year. I think he's an up and comer for us. And then Reagan Sitton did a great job running the ball. Nick Olson, Kay Lauer. I'd be remiss not to even mention our quarterback, Zach Keedy. If you're going to run triple option football, you've seen this at Cary Grove and anybody that runs it, the quarterback has to be an extension of the head coach. And we were just able to kind of get into a groove and just run the ball. We kind of wore them down. Prairie Central, they do a lot of the same things, but they're more of a wing T team. And, that's going to be a great matchup. Scott Hamilton, one of the best coaches in the state, great record, been to the title game 6 times. Yep. And, he loses in week 1. He hasn't lost one since then. And the South is up for the grabs. It's up for grabs. You have really good storylines in Prairie Central and Salona Unity and a rematch. And then obviously Williamsville has this wonderful reputation of being a great physical football team. They're not just a skill-based team. They're very good. And then, their 15-seed Olympia Spartans, spearheaded by Eric Lyons and his triple option attack has kind of crashed the party right now, but we expect to kind of crash the party, and hopefully we'll continue to have a great week and just continue to play good football.
Is the option game that Olympia runs, is it just me, or does it seem to be more prevalent in the northern part of the state versus the central southern part of the state? Or is that just a misconception on my part?
That there's more option teams up north?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think just because of the great reputations that a lot of these teams have,
right. 100%.
Like Stillman Valley, do they do a little bit of option every once in a while? They do. They run inside, outside veer, all those things, that Coach Lawler's done, but then you get to some of these other teams, over the years, I think it's just, you're just so accustomed to people running the ball. I mean,
and tradition, like you said.
Yeah. Like Cary Grove, Coach Lenti at Mount Carmel over the years, all these teams, I think you kind of think about that. There's really been no one in the South that's really done it. Anna Jonesboro did it for a while when they had their successful teams down there.
Right.
But in terms of the right here and the right now, this is something that, and again, I don't want to say too much because I don't know the ins and outs of the option football. Right. And I'm not saying that to just blow off your answer, but option football takes a lot of time. Right. and I can tell you that right now as a freshman coach, in which my freshmen did not win a game this year, but we were very competitive in about 2 or 3 games. It takes a lot of time, Our JV team, they won some games, So it's just like a trickle down. It takes time when you're teaching that because there's a lot of intricacies. There's a lot of moving parts.
And you look at on a bigger scale, Prairie Ridge, Cary Grove, to some extent Jacobs in that Fox Valley. There's a ton of it there, but how have they been successful over the years doing it? They've had stability in the coaching ranks. The youth programs all run that same system.
Yep.
So these kids come up 6th, 7th, 8th grade in Cary Grove and Prairie Ridge. They've been running that offense for 2-3 years in some form. Obviously, it gets a little more advanced the higher up they go, but the basics of it They're learning at the grade school level, and they win with it. Why would you change something that's not broke? And I get it. You're going to have people that are going to say, I don't want my kid, I don't want my quarterback, I don't want him running the option, I want him throwing the ball 40 times a game. I don't know, man. After a while, I think winning's got a lot to do with hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I
Well,
think that's the case with a lot.
I think you started this whole thing a long time ago in terms of this. We're going to start stuff in the feeder system, and we're just going to get after it. We're going to run our stuff. There's a great Bob Reed at Geneseo High School.
Yep.
You know, and I think you talk about these programs up there. You know, you first thing you said was coaching stability and coach, and I'll just take it a step further: coaching stability and coaching staff.
Right.
You know, like I'm not going to speak for Eric, but I know, you know, we got a good coaching staff, and I'm kind of just holding on. I literally looked at a couple of coaches that showed up there after the game, and they're like, pretty impressive. Wow. And I'm like, yeah. And I go, I'm just kind of holding on. I'm holding on and trying to learn as I go, because there's things about our offense that I do know. There's things about that I don't know. And I'm glad I know there's a guy that knows everything. And right now he's got his hands on the Ferrari, and it's running pretty hard right now. So, but these things take time. And if I will brag for Eric, you know, he would say it if he was here. I don't think he would be mad at me for saying this. It was 503 yards, no passing, and no punts. It was the perfect game for an option guy.
Well, and it's perfect weather as well. I mean, wind, who cares? You know, rain, snow, sleet, who cares?
Well, you want to take it a step further. I mean, if you go into any of these football games, 1 through 8A, I mean, let's get down to it. I mean, the team that runs the darn ball.
Yeah, you have to.
You know, wing T or whatever. Even if we have some teams that in 2A or maybe 6A, 7A, 8A, they're going to spread you out to run the ball.
Right. 100%. 100%. You've got to have some form of running game at this time of year. You're just not going to make it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. We'll go into Class 4A, Matt. And again, we'll go through the second round results. Richmond Burton, again, absolutely roll over Urban Prep Bronzeville. No surprise there. 54-6 to advance. Providence, an upset. We'll say it's an upset win. 24-14 over Joliet Catholic. JCA, of course, beat Providence earlier in the regular season. Providence at home for the second time against JCA gets the win to advance. Again, that's a 13 seed advancing to the quarterfinal. Rochelle gets a 34-22 win over Johnsburg. The Hubs, again, with their power running game, always very solid. And Wheaton St. Francis, a 42-0 win over Evergreen Park to advance. So again, in the northern part of the quarterfinals in Class 4A, Matt, you've got Richmond Burton on the road taking on Providence Catholic. That is a Saturday game at 2:00, I believe. Yes, 2:00. Wheaton St. Francis on the road as a 3 seed at Rochelle. That is a Saturday at 2:00 game, Matt. And again, just 4 real heavyweights here in the northern part of the bracket. Richmond Burton's going to run the football. Rochelle is going to run the football. Providence, for the most part, is going to run the football. Wheaton St. Francis can run the football, but they can also throw it around. And I think 2 terrific quarterfinal games here for sure.
It's going to be some really hard-nosed football, you know. I mean, well, eventually we'll talk about the South, but in terms of North, I mean, you know, after Providence beat JCA last week, you know, I think all eyes on 4A are going to be on this game between Richmond Burton and Providence.
Yeah.
You know, these are 2-story programs going at it for 48 minutes, and it's probably going to be the coldest day of the year.
Yep.
It's definitely going to be the coldest day of the playoffs.
We hope. We hope it won't get more colder than what it could be on Saturday. You never know in this state. So
yeah, no, it's going to be crazy. And, you know, Mike Knoll with that state title in 2019 up in DeKalb, you know, and Providence coming into the game with 10 state titles under their belts. This should be a great matchup. I mean, it's just going to be a phenomenal matchup. And I will say this, I've saved the article. I'm going to read the article. You can educate me and all of our fans. the Rochelle looks like they're the real deal. They look like they got some big guys up front, and they look like they're huge. And I think they got their hands full. That's more your wheelhouse. But, man, talk about 2 games of 4 great teams. Wow.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing I want to add to, by the way, a little plug for my radio show on Thursday night, this Thursday night, 1340 WJOL, WJOL.com. We'll have both Mike Knoll from Richmond Burton and Tyler Plants from Providence Catholic. And that's the WJOL game of the week on Saturday. So we'll break that one down with the coaches. And again, Mike Knoll, great guy. Had him on last year when they played JCA. I believe it was in the quarters of the semis. I think it would have been the semis. And again, just a legendary head coach, great guy, just really fun to talk to. So we'll have him on. Yeah, again, Rochelle is going to do what Rochelle has always done. They're going to run option. They are going to run power football at Wheaton St. Francis. And again, I think the Spartans are built for it. They're built to slow it down. But, again, it's one of those where this is getting gut check time, and you got to bring your top game. And I think that's what Wheaton St. Francis is going to have to do on the road at Rochelle. By the way, Wheaton St. Francis fans, by all means, try a pork chop at Rochelle. Outstanding. Very, very good. I can firsthand, excellent.
I would just like to say that we sold over 700 pork chops.
I bet.
And this Saturday, we're going to do pork chops and ribeyes.
Nice.
The little full ribeye, dude. The little full ribeye. Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Excellent. Excellent. All right, let's go through the southern bracket of Class 4A. Carterville again. Carterville, Matt, playing terrific football this year. 22-0 win over Coal City. That's impressive defensively for Carterville, locking down Coal City to advance. They will take on Rochester again. Derek Leonard and the Rockets clicking at the right time of the year. 42-0 win over Breeze Central to advance. Maybe the score that was being monitored throughout the state on Saturday. Sacred Heart Griffin found themselves down for quite a bit of this game against Waterloo. They come back late. They get a couple of late touchdowns and win 28-16 to advance. Again, we'll get into that game in a minute. But then Murfreesboro, again, got to give Murfreesboro a ton of credit. They go and beat Macomb 20-16 to advance. So again, Matt, southern part of the 4A bracket, Rochester on the road at Carterville Saturday 1:30. Murfreesboro on the road at Sacred Heart Griffin Saturday 2 p.m. Couple of things in that southern bracket. Number one, got a little concerned when I saw Kenny Leonard was not coaching in that game. Everything I've been told, he had a flu. Obviously concerned for his kids and his coaches. Didn't want to spread it, didn't want to be around them, so he kind of bit the bullet, sat out that game. Everything I've heard is that he is going to be fine for this week, which is great to hear. Because you've dealt with Kenny Leonard, and I've known Kenny Leonard for years, and it had to be serious for him to miss a game. Believe me. Believe me. I am sure he fought tooth and nail to get on that sideline. But, knowing Kenny doing what's best for his kids and his coaches, decided to sit down. But you got to give the kids at Waterloo all the credit in the world, because they fought tooth and nail and almost pulled up a gigantic upset in that second round.
Well, they put 70 points on Olney the week before, and they have a little bit of football tradition too down there in the South. They've been in a state title game a long time ago, and they've had some good runs with their other sporting programs. And so I'm glad to know that Coach Leonard is doing well. I can tell you, I think there's a lot of flu bug and a lot of colds going around right now, because we're in the wonderful state of, Illinois, where it's going to be 75 the next 2 days.
Tomorrow.
And then
75,
Friday,
35 Saturday.
Yeah, then it'll be about 35. Feel like it's 0.
Yep.
So there's a lot of germs and bacteria. I know this guy right here, I've been putting a lot of Tylenol on my body and cough drops and gargling salt water because last week I
Oh,
had
hotty toddy every once in a while too.
Oh my God. It's just, I had the worst cold and the worst sore throat, and I'm a big drama queen, but we all got to get healthy, and I don't try to do anything to spread anything around my kids. But here we go. 4A, I'll just tell you real quick. Kenny Leonard gets to be at home this week, so hopefully he's better. Derek gets to make the long trip to Carterville. They're both going to probably reunite next week at midfield for the final Leonard Bowl. We'll talk more about that later.
I believe, and again, I apologize. I should have done this math in advance. If I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, you know what? When you're doing your four quarters, I will double check and make sure. But I believe if both Rochester and Sacred Heart wins, I believe that game would be at Sacred Heart. I believe.
Yeah.
Last year it was at Rochester, same round.
Yeah, it was.
I was there. So.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
So there you go. Class 4A, again, tremendous ball games. Looking forward to those as well. Matt, it's time that everyone waits. They just sit around, wait patiently. All week, actually, they wait to see what is going to be in Matt Leng's four quarters. And finally,
this is all self-approved by Coach EDGYTIM. So
finally, I can shut up and let you get to Matt Leng's four quarters. Now,
this
again,
is and ladies and gentlemen, this is the whole reason we do a podcast, because he told me
this is it.
I talk way too much. We needed to go podcast, and he's like, "Just do your thing, Matt Leng."
So you always have a theme, and I find this theme interesting because, first of all, I'm all about it. First of all, I'm all about it, and honestly, I don't know if I could pick a favorite between the four that you've chosen.
Okay.
If I had a top five, these four would be in my top five.
Okay.
So, I'm just telling you, we're simpatico here on some of this.
Yeah, we are. Okay. Well,
so
do you want to?
So the theme of your four quarters this week, and I will shut up in a minute, so the rest of America and the world can
But
get.
I want you to spoon feed me these.
Oh, don't. Okay, that's a little creepy, but we'll keep moving forward. All right. The theme.
Or no, here's what you say. You're like, okay, I'll give you the softball pitch. Here we go.
Okay. Let's keep it to that. Let's keep the food spoon feeding everything else out of this. It's ice cream theme. Now, again, sounds great. It's going to sound great tomorrow when it's 75. It's not going to sound great when it's 35 on Saturday. But we're Illinois. Bundle up. Go watch a game. It's what we do. Simple. So let's start with your four quarters. It is the ice cream themed. And Matt, we are going to start in class 1A. Your theme is cookies and cream.
Okay, so here we go. Ice cream flavors, cookies and cream. I think we have some. I think we have some good teams in 1A. I think there's some good cookies here. I think there's some tough cookies. I think some of these programs are really good. But when we talk about cookies and cream, we're talking about the cream of the crop in 1A, and that's Lena Winslow. And I think, this team just continues to get better and better and better. They are the cream of the crop in 1A, and they're going to rise one more time, and they're going to, they're going to be in some dog fights here. I think these next two games are going to be tough for them. Will a fellow NUIC foe knock them off? But for right now, they are the cream of the crop. Everybody else, I think, is just kind of ordinary cookies in 1A.
Okay, very good. I like that. Let's work our way to class 2A. This might even be top of all time for me. It's certainly in the top three. For 2A, you have it as a rocky road.
Well, I will say this. Cookies and cream is my son Ben's favorite ice cream. He has an enormous amount of shakes, so I'm right there with cookies and cream. Rocky Road is Rocky Road, and I think it has a good texture, has all the flavors.
Yep.
And so, not trying to get too cute here, but we do have a lot of flavors, I think, in 2A, okay? I think it's going to be a rocky road for a lot of teams, and it's going to be really interesting to kind of see who kind of comes out of these games. We have got some great matchups in 2A. The bottom line is, I think there's going to be some rocky roads for these teams. Will they get to the state championship in my opinion, to take on Mark Ramsey and St. T. I don't know, folks. All I can say is that you better eat your ice cream before it melts, because St. T is good, Moreau is good, and they're going to all these teams in 2A. I try to tie what they do football wise into the ice cream. All of them, every single one of them, are really good at pounding the rock. Okay, so all of them have a little rocky road in them. All of them can pound the rock. Some of these roads, I think, are going to be difficult for some teams. I don't think Moreau Forsyth is going to have it easy at Rockbridge. I think it's going to be tough. And the same thing, I think this Pana team is going to give Mark Ramsey everything he wants. There's going to be some rocky roads for these teams in 2A.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Moving on to 3A, and again, terrific choice here. You have 3A as more of a chocolate chip cookie dough. Please explain.
Well, my ice cream flavor for 3A is going to be chocolate chip cookie dough, just because. Let's talk about the Olympia Spartans, and let's talk about these Byron Tigers.
Are you selling chocolate chip cookie dough?
I'm not, but I will tell you this.
I had to ask.
No, I will tell you this. I think of some of these teams in 3A are playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I won't speak for my boss, but I know that we have a resiliency about us right now, and they're all following the lead of their head coach.
Dude, you're a 15 seed. You were awarded a chip when you walked into the playoffs, so no need to explain.
It's Eric Lyons and his incredible resiliency to not deviate from the plan. There's plenty of teams, I think, in 3A that all have a little chip on their shoulder. I think Scott Hamilton has a chip on his shoulder right now because he got beat in week 1, and he wants a rematch. I think Prairie Central is finally saying, we've got the team to do this, but they're talking about other teams in 3A. But you know what? We're the top dog until someone beats us. You could do the same thing in the North. I think there's a lot of teams that can say, hey, we're the top dog. We're the top dog. So when I say, kind of a chocolate chip cookie dough, I'm talking about teams with chip on their shoulders, and it's going to be some tough matchups these next 2 weeks. So that's what I have for that.
And then finally in 4A, and again, we're pressing up against the 1 hour window. I know that makes you happy. 4A, you have as mint chocolate chip, again, an all-time favorite. Your thoughts on 4A?
Well, I'll try to go fast because my overtime was really good. Okay, so the chocolate, the chocolate chip for mint chocolate chip. I'm just going to read this because I wrote this. It's a mini ice cream favorite. It's very unique. It's unlike any other ice cream. And we have 2 head coaches in 4A who I think are unlike anyone in the business. They're 2 of the best in the business. They're 2 of the best in the state. EDGYTIM, I think you could argue that maybe they're 2 of the best in the United States when it comes to high school football. You know how ESPN has these games on television with all these high-profile teams?
Yep.
I'll just put a plug out there right now. ESPN should telecast that game, because I think they're 2 of the best football coaches, but they're 2 of the best people. And just like mint ice cream, it's going to be like any other regular high school football game we've ever seen, but that's down the road. But, in terms of mint chocolate chip, I think we have some unique teams, and unique coaches.
We do. No doubt about it. Should be fun. Should be a tremendous, chilly quarterfinal round. And again, then it really gets rolling. It becomes literally a blur from the next week or so out. So again, plenty to look forward to this weekend. Matt, one thing real quick, and again, I know we're pressing up that hour window. Surprised a little bit, no Friday game this week?
Well, interesting. I guess people are pushing. I guess if you had to switch it around, there might be some teams that might want to play on Friday versus Saturday.
Right, with the weather. But, I thought for sure at least we get a couple. But, unfortunately, this has kind of been the last handful of years.
Yep.
Kind of been the trend. We get away really quick. The smaller classes generally get away from it and play Saturday. We usually get some Chicago area games up here on Friday,
sure,
but not happening anymore. So, all right. Anything else you want to add before I cut you off?
Well, I did have the overtime. I hope like I can just do it real quick. I mean, it's like 3-4 minutes here.
Fire away.
Okay, so
I didn't get that. Oh, okay, you did. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. So your
And this is
overtime, sir, something you can very well get, probably especially on Saturday, if you're eating ice cream
yeah.
and watching IHSA football, is a little brain freeze.
I promise this will be worth it. This is good, and this is a shout out to every program out there. Okay.
Well, we'll be the judge of that. Continue.
Okay, here we go. So the temps are going to be cold. You're going to get brain freeze, but here's the deal: football is football, and ice cream is ice cream. So if you had to go, ice cream is ice cream. Your vanilla ice cream in 1A is Lena Winslow. They're making their 6th consecutive appearance in the quarterfinals, and the 4 NUIC teams left in the playoffs have a combined 13 state championships between them.
Amazing.
In 2A, if you had to go with another ice cream, let's go back to old reliable strawberry ice cream. This class is going to be going through a gauntlet. Okay, whoever comes out on top is going to have, they've earned it. You have Maroa in the playoffs for the 18th consecutive year. They have brought home 8 trophies in that time frame, minus the COVID year. You have Tri-Valley, who's been to the playoffs 13 out of the last 14 years with the 1st and 2nd place finish. And you have St. T, who has only missed the playoffs 3 times since 1980. In 3A, you have chocolate ice cream. Does it get any easier as you go up in the classes? Not really, because you look at these classes like IC Catholic, who has gone 107-24 in the last 10 years with those 3 consecutive state titles in 16, 17, and 18. And then you have a team like Byron, who's been in the playoffs 28 years in their history with 2 first-place trophies and 2 seconds. And even if you go with the South, of the tradition is still up there for Tolona Uni, making 29 playoff appearances, mostly under Scott Hamilton with 5 runner-ups. Williamsville Bullets have not missed the playoffs since 2008, and they have a state title and a state runner-up. And even the Olympia Spartans in 1986 got a state runner-up.
Meters running out.
4A, let's call it how it is. It's butter pecan, it's old time, and it's very reliable, okay? Let's call this bracket Titletown bracket because you have an eye-popping 27 state titles since the IHSA playoffs have started. Whoever comes out on top in 4A will have really, really earned it through this tough bracket, top to bottom.
No doubt. All right. Say goodbye, Matt Leng. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll be back next week. Have a great rest of the week. Bundle up. Go out, watch a game on Saturday, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody.